Hello and welcome to Top Set. My name is William Lebowski, and today I'm bringing you, a few world records, might I say, 7 to be exact, a top 10 and a runner-up. I don't think that this was sheer brilliance or sheer genius, but rather some just plain old-fashioned speed and power. Especially when it comes to any of the competition we have here. See, we ran a lap in this 99 stock car. Originally, I was trying to set up a race here with this 99 stock car at Auto Club because I really feel like that 99 stock car is kind of the do-it-all car of the late 90s, essentially, in my eyes. When I think of a car that's really fun to drive and that can do a lot, it's actually this stock car. And weirdly enough, for this Brazilian stock car, I don't think that they got incredibly popular up until after the pandemic, mid-pandemic, so somewhere, I don't know, sometime around there. I don't feel like that they were that popular, so especially going back to this 99 stock car, I don't think that we're getting more obscure as we go. But this machine I found really does awesome at ovals. It really does well at short courses, and it really does well at some courses that are long and have some long corners and big straightaways that it can stretch its legs out. But here we have going for a couple different records, or a couple different laps, each getting faster. So here you can see we have just taken the record. As you can see up in the top left, we are comparing ourselves to the ghost of the current leader, and I just kind of wanted to see how much faster could I get myself, because that was just barely eking it out. I think if we were to look at that as a side-by-side finish, we would have been door-to-door would have been an understatement. I think it would have been a legitimate photo finish there to see who won that race. I don't think it would have been very obvious looking at it. But one thing about this car is it is a little bit old school. It is just power through the wheels, your steering wheel, your inputs, and your gear shift. And so there's not a whole lot to it. And so that being said, it's not a fancy car that can really do anything you tell it. It kind of has to do its own thing. So yeah, here we go to the leaderboard. We see even yet again, still not even a 10th, but. Yeah, so you kind of jumping now to a car that's super aerodynamic, and you can kind of tell it to do whatever it wants, and it says, yeah, done it, easy challenge. That last car, you kind of have to really yank it around the track at what's best for it. And here we have a car where I'm starting to experiment with the lines, and the lines are becoming kind of cheese. As you can see here, we're really down on the apron here. Cutting this track as close to the shortest amount of distance as we possibly can, and really taking as much from it as we can to really get an advantage. So we can see there we've got the record, but I do think I went for another go. No, I didn't. We're going to take it again, not even a 10th. So again, just kind of jumped on, did a couple laps, eked these out. Here we go to the BMW Procar, and this was a fun one. Because this car has a ton of power. Its handling is not super impressive, even though at the time it was. I mean, it still is a very fast car, but especially at the time it was still an incredibly fast car. So this is another kind of car that was really performed really well here on this big oval, where you really need to let it stretch itself out. You can see him experimenting with different lines here. Trying to go a little bit further up, and also now that I know I'm going for a push lap here, I want to really maximize my run going into the first corner, and I think that did work out pretty well. As you can see us go ahead on the Delta and just start walking. So there we go, we take it, but I knew I had more in me, so we go again for another run in this car. I think I'm definitely going to have to dedicate some more time to racing this BMW Procar. It was just a ton of fun. And I didn't expect it to be as fun and as powerful as it was. And here we are now dipping down to the cheese line. So we knew we probably had some extra time in us. At least probably I'd say a 10th you can gain, depending on the car and the speed of the car. I think you can gain at least a 10th by going down onto that apron. And as you can see here now, we're sitting at about a 10th, but I do think it came down. I think it cost us on the straightaway. So it is an interesting, more of a give and take, because if we are to look at a NASCAR, and specifically a NASCAR race, they're not running down that low. They're still running really fast, but they're not running down that low. And it's just not faster in the long run. But in the short run over one lap, that's really all we're concerned about. So it's interesting to see how that car would perform on an oval in a race. But now as we jump into the prototypes, I really just wanted to run through and grab them all. So those are 4 prototypes, because here we are in the P4, the LMP. Well, I guess it's not an LM because it's not a Le Mans prototype, but the P4 here, again, maximizing this cheese line. I don't know how I feel about this cheese line, so to say. One, I know it's the cheese line. I'm aware enough to know that it's cheese. I'm aware enough to know that it's not ideal. But I also know that when it comes to going for leaderboard and hot lap times on a game, I know we're sim racers, we like to call these simulators, but when it comes to going and playing a video game, we are playing a virtual game here, it's important to remember that sometimes when you are gaming, sometimes the meta is the fastest, is the best thing, and sometimes you're really just unnecessarily hampering yourself in that specific competition if you're not doing it. And so that's kind of ultimately at the end of the day how I see it here. When it comes to a race, no, of course not. You would never do that for a multitude of reasons. And the biggest and really the only reason you need is what we mentioned earlier when I was starting to make this point, was that it's just not faster in the long run. Over one lap it might be, but it definitely will eat your tires faster because you have less grip, you have less banking. So in the long run, this is a very poor choice, I feel like. But for, again, who could be faster over one lap, it works really well. So yeah, here we go. Now we've up into the LMP2 car, and I tried to open up the DRS. This LMP2 car is DRS, and I tried to open it, and immediately just went sliding. And one thing I did learn about using the DRS in this LMP2 is that once you max it out, like here we're going 156, and we pinned it. This is it for the rest of the lap. It doesn't go any faster. So even if you're on the straights, and theoretically there would have to be some sort of advantage to opening up your DRS on a straight, even if you're already maxed out, just because aerodynamically speaking, you might not propel yourself any further, but there would be less resistance, thus making you go faster. So maybe that doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe there's a different component here that's governing the speed on this LMP2. But you can see here we're pulling down into the finish line with a length on this car, and we're going to take the record. Here we go, boom, instantly. But I think this is another lap where I'm thinking, I've got more gas in the tank, let's stretch out the ponies a little bit further. And I think that also includes more cheese. So I think we're going to see ourselves exiting this corner as quickly as possible, getting down onto that apron and down into the pit lane road probably as quickly as possible. No, we're going to stay above the line. But I'm 90% sure we're going to enter down this corner into the apron as low as we can, hold that all the way through the start-finish line. Here it is. But you could just see the time that I gain being on the shorter distance of track line, how I'm just walking on this guy in the same class of car as me. And I'm either using their setups, the default setups, or I'm using their setups with some slight tweaks. Maybe there would be a default setup that would be the current record, but they would not put the rear wing down as low as it could go for some reason. So it would just be little stuff like that. Again, we're talking about the time trial mode, so it's already 100% tires. It's already the 5 liters of fuel permanently. But here we go, even more time pulling out with this LMP2 car to really ensure ourselves there with a half a second, with the finger guns in the half a second. That guy only had it by 1,000th, and now we come in there with a half a second. Up to the LMP1, I noticed that everybody's in this MetalMoro, Honda, and Nissan. So I grabbed the Nissan because it was the top 3 times. And I went for it. Again, this car a little bit even more faster, more nimble, of course, than the P2 that we were just with. As a side note, I really hate these prototypes. It's actually one of the things that keeps me away from AMS2, really more than anything when it comes to wanting to race it the way I want to race. Because when I think of what is my race, when I think of like what's an ideal race for me, it's a multi-class race with LMP1s or hypercars now, LMP2s, some GTEs, maybe some GT4s, maybe swap out the GTEs with some GT3s, but it's the traditional multi-class endurance-based racing. I just love it. It gets me going, makes me build the brick wall. I love it. It's just bricks. There's nothing better to me than that. Maybe something like IndyCar or some I don't know, but when it really comes to my bread and butter, it of course is that multi-class racing. And so when it comes to these prototypes, they're just not what I'm used to, and so I don't like the feel of them. I don't like how they intermingle together as that one big multi-class group. And so overall, it really just keeps me on AMS2 for the things you can't get anywhere else. And that is a very limiting car and track and experience case. But here you see me jump into the Formula 1 car, and I have trouble. I am copying the setups because this car is very setup dependent and responds very well to specific setup changes. You can see this guy is ultimate cheesing. I was not cheesing nearly as hard as this guy. This guy is literally down on this white line the entire lap, all the way around, even right next to the cone on the exit of pit road. And so I'm copying his setup. I'm knowing this guy is doing complete meta, so I got to do complete meta as well. And when I do it, you can see here we're getting engine problems. And I tried doing more of a baseline setup with some just aerodynamic tweaks, and there were still some huge problems. Really what the difference maker is you have to put all of the air intakes for the car at closed in order to maintain the high speed that you need for a world record in the time trial mode. And because of that, you only get one lap of actual healthy engine. And so you really got to make it count. You really got to bring it all together at once, and you really got to you got to cheese it all at once. You have to have the perfect setup all at once, all sort of this all at once, and that's just really hard to do. And it quite frankly, it wasn't fun at all. Cheesing is only as fun as it is successful. I don't think, quite frankly, I don't think there's no enjoyment out of cheesing. Our buddy Jeff here on the channel likes to talk about in F1 Control. Champions Racing League. If you're interested in that, you should definitely check it out if you're looking for some Formula 1 league-based action coming out of the United States, or North America rather, so it's North American time zone friendly. But anyway, he's really firm on the thing is there is always going to be exploits in games, video games of any kind, and you can't prevent all of them. And sometimes you're just a fucking loser if you use them. So here, me and this guy, I'm a third off of him, and then the rest of the field are second plus, and it's because we're ultimate cheesing as much as we can in this car. This GT3 Porsche does not want to cheese at all. It's not as aerodynamically efficient or whatever we have, and so I just cannot hold myself down as low as possible, but I am trying to get myself down as low as I possibly can. You do not go flat out in this car. And I just have to imagine that this guy is able to eke out just that little bit more throttle time than I am consistently. And I'm not exactly sure. It's here less so with the Formula 1 car, because that Formula 1 car that we were just trying to set laps with is a bit more finicky in what you have to do with the setups. So this is what I've got. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys appreciate it. And let's see what times you can guys. Let's see what time you guys can throw down. There we go. Now we can speak. Have a good day.